okay. Top 3 photos with disturbing backstories.
Today, I'm going to be sharing 3 progressively more disturbing stories, and at the end of each of them, I will share the pictures that are famously
Stumble.
In 1987, 21-year-old Deanna Wild had just separated from her husband, and she was living with her 2 friends, Virginia and BJ McGinnis, who were both 54 years old. On April 2nd of that year, the trio decided to visit Big Sur, which is
Wait, hold up. Everyone in chat right now say hi, YouTube. So everybody that's watching on YouTube feel like they're missing out and they join the streams. We're live every single day, twitch.tv/L3WG. Say hello.
a very beautiful, but very steep and dangerous section of the Central California coastline. They pulled over at a particular cliff overlooking the water to take some pictures. Afterwards, as they were getting ready to go back to their car, Deanna wanted a closer look, so she stepped to the edge of the cliff where she lost her footing and she fell 500 feet to her death. It was ruled an accident, so investigating officers refrained from taking any on-scene photographs, accepting instead Virginia's photographs that she said she had taken right before it happened. Deanna's mother was unable to afford a funeral for her daughter, and so the only person she could think to ask to help her was a lawyer that went to the same church as her. His name was Steve Keeney, and Steve said, yeah, of course, I'll try to make some phone calls for you and see what I can do. And in doing so, he wound up learning about the case, about what happened to Deanna, and he discovered that her 2 friends, Virginia and BJ, had actually taken a life insurance policy out on Deanna the day before she fell off the cliff.
Wait. BJ's a person? Just so for my understanding, BJ's a person? Because BJ is somewhere else where I'm from.
And so Steve began digging into the backgrounds of Virginia and BJ, and he discovered that Virginia had a history of being around a high number of accidental deaths and suspicious fires, and that she had cashed in a whole bunch of life insurance policies. So all of a sudden, Deanna's death did not look accidental. Okay. Steve would become obsessed with the idea that the McGinnises were behind Deanna's death, but unfortunately, there was virtually no evidence to support that because when she died, the investigating officers ruled it an accident. So there was no crime scene, there was no evidence collected, the autopsy was very cursory, and so Steve would spend 5 years building a case against Virginia and BJ, but at the end of those 5 years, it was a rock-solid case, and Virginia and BJ were arrested. During their trial...
Yo, I can't take him serious, bro. Every time he says BJ, I just think Bruh.
The real story of what happened to Deanna finally emerged. On that April day in 1987, the trio went to Big Sur, and they had lunch together, they had a picnic, and while they were eating, BJ slipped some of his prescription antidepressants into Deanna's drink, and so after lunch, the drugs were in Deanna's system, and she began to get very drowsy, to the point where Virginia and BJ had to literally hold her up. She was falling over, she was so tired. And so while Deanna's in this state, Virginia and BJ tell her, hey, let's go over to the cliffs and take some pictures. And so they walk over, Deanna's stumbling and BJ's holding her up, and they get to the edge of the cliff, and BJ turns around so the ocean's at his back, and he's propping up Deanna, and Virginia steps away and she takes their picture. And then right after that picture, BJ, while still holding Deanna, turned around to face the water and kind of carried Deanna right to the edge, and Virginia took one more picture of them facing the water. And then right after that picture was taken, BJ took Deanna and threw her off the cliff. But
wait! You died to a BJ? Oh, I can never have a BJ ever again, bro. You died to a BJ? No, that's wild. That's wild. That is wild. Nice death. No, that's crazy, bro.
Perhaps the most disturbing part of this case is that as soon as he threw her off, Deanna kind of came to and whipped herself around and managed to grab onto the cliff with her hands. And so she's literally dangling, holding onto this ledge, like in the movies, begging to be pulled back up. And Virginia and BJ, instead of helping her back up, picked up rocks and bashed her hands until she fell off the cliff. Ultimately, it would be these last 2 pictures that Virginia took that got her and BJ convicted of killing Deanna. Because these pictures clearly showed Deanna was impaired compared to the earlier pictures on the camera roll. And the only reason these pictures existed is because Virginia wanted a...
Bro, all I was seeing there was like the scene from Lion King. Was it Scar that was hanging on, or was it Mufasa? I can't remember now. That's all I was seeing there, bro. Was just Lion King. Was it Mufasa? and then Scar like clawed his hand off. It was one. Yeah, it was Mufasa.
Trophy from the killing because she was actually an uncaught serial killer that went around killing people and cashing in their life insurance policies. One of her victims even included her own 3-year-old daughter. BJ would.
Oh, bro, no. That is fucked. That is fucked.
Actually died during his trial. As for Virginia, she was found guilty and sent to jail for life. Here are the final 2 pictures that Virginia took of Deanna.
Yo, that's crazy, bro. That is sick in the head. That is sick in the head.
On July 30th...
Yeah, I can't lie. I do feel bad for Diana for obviously dying. But yeah, I couldn't take that story seriously since his name was BJ. I'm too immature for this shit, bro. I'm too immature. I'm too immature for this shit, bro.
2016, Janice Stewart was at home in College Station, Texas, preparing for a wedding she was going to be photographing the following week. Her 34-year-old daughter, named Sunday Rowan, lived a few hours away in San Antonio, and she was planning to go with her to help her take these pictures. As Janice worked, her cell phone kept buzzing. Since sunrise, Sunday had been Snapchatting her photos of her and her husband, Matt, who was...
Hold up. We just got a very important question, Shady. Hey, what do subs do? Like, what do I get extra if I subscribe? First of all, you support your streamer, which is me. So I really appreciate it, dude. Secondly, you get a cool badge next to your name. If anyone says it isn't cool, ignore them. It is cool. Thirdly, you get the best emotes on Twitch. If anyone says they're not, ignore them. They are. Fourthly, no ads. And fifthly, I love you even more, dude. I love you even more.
Since sunrise, Sunday had been Snapchatting her photos of her and her husband, Matt, who was also 34, as they got ready for their hot air balloon ride that day.
Hey, never mind. Beth came through with the gift to Shady. Hey, Beth, thank you so much. There you go, Shady. They got you covered.
18 months earlier, Sunday had bought Matt the tickets as a birthday gift, but the trip kept getting delayed because of bad weather.
Thank you, Beth.
But on this July morning, the weather had cleared up and the trip was finally happening. Sunday and Matt often sought adventure to balance the demands of their jobs. Matt was the chief of clinical trials at the Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio and was a rising star in the field of burn research. Sunday worked at Crazy 8, which was a kids' clothing store, and she was devoted to her young son from a previous relationship. At 6:58 that morning, Janice received an image of the balloon's ground crew prepping the wicker basket that would hold her daughter, her son-in-law, and the rest of the other passengers. Around 7:30, Janice received another image. This one was a selfie of Sunday and Matt posing inside of the wicker basket. They were up in the air. There's a beautiful field below them. They're smiling and they're hugging. After that,
never in my life will I go on one of these. I actually think it's crazy that people go on things where you're just held up by a balloon, bro. I have pumped up so many balloons in my life and seen them pop. You are crazy. And then you're putting fire under the balloon as well. That just don't make sense in my head. That just does not make sense in my head, bro. Not only is it a balloon that can pop, but it is held up by fire in the balloon. Hell no. No. Hell no. Hey, Uncle Bo, appreciate the gift, dude.
The messages stopped. 10 minutes later at 7:40, 85-year-old Buddy Miller was making breakfast in his ranch when he heard 2 loud explosions. The first one actually rattled his house. When he looked out the window, he saw this massive plume of black smoke on another rancher's land off in the distance.
Is it the balloon?
Alarmed, he jumped in his pickup truck and raced past his cows to the blaze a half-mile away. Commotion like this rarely occurred in Maxwell, Texas, a quiet rural community about 40 miles south of Austin.
Have you heard of anybody dying from a hot air balloon? No, but I've not also heard of anyone dying from jumping into the sun. But you ain't gonna do that, are you? You know what I'm saying? Now, what kind of question is that?
Maxwell, Texas, a quiet rural community about 40 miles south of Austin. At her home just up the road was 66-year-old Margaret Wiley, who heard the explosions too.
Right.
She said the first one reminded her of the sound her 20-gauge shotgun made. When she stepped onto the porch, she heard the second explosion, and she said it sounded like a loud pop, followed by a whooshing sound, like the sound a gas stove makes when it ignites. When she looked out towards where the sounds had come from, she saw this massive fireball explode in the distance, and she immediately called 911. burn. When Buddy and the other first responders arrived at the scene, they saw this huge fire at the base of a power line tower, and at first they couldn't figure out what was actually burning. They heard the sound of hissing propane tanks and thought maybe it was a tractor or a baler that had caught on fire, but upon closer inspection, they saw a wicker basket and they saw bodies. This was a hot air balloon accident.
There you go, Sacred. I now know of people that died in a hot air balloon. These guys.
It would turn out the pilot of that hot air balloon was 49-year-old Skip Nichols, and he had elected to fly that day despite a low cloud cover that had grounded the other hot air balloon companies in the area that morning. Also, Skip was on a mixture of prescription and over-the-counter drugs that impaired his ability to fly the balloon safely. After being in the air for 8 miles above the clouds, Skip decided it was time to land, and so he blindly descended through the clouds and he immediately hit a power line. An arc carrying 340,000 volts of electricity cut the balloon's metal support cables like a torch. As soon as the basket began plummeting toward the earth, the fuel lines disconnected from the burners overhead, spraying liquid propane up into the burners and then arced back down into the wicker basket, immediately engulfing the entire thing in flames.
Oh my God.
The burning basket fell over 100 feet to the ground. By 10 a.m. that morning, Janice had still not heard from her daughter after that last text she sent, which included the picture of her and Matt, that selfie image up in the balloon, and Janice was concerned that something had gone wrong. So she turned on the TV, and the first thing she sees is hot air balloon crash in Texas, no survivors. And on the screen, she immediately recognized the smiley face that was on the balloon that had crashed, because she recognized it from the images her daughter had sent her. Even before she got the official call, she knew instinctively that her daughter and her son-in-law were both gone. Here are the final pictures taken of Sunday, Matt, and the other 14 people who were on board that balloon.
That is horrible. That is horrible. Yep. I ain't ever going on that. Yep. Nope. No. Yeah, fuck that. Nah. In no way. In no way. In no way. How many people was in it, by the way? I thought it was just like the couple. Bro, there's loads! 14! Oh, he just said 14. Oh, I missed that. You guys know me. I miss details sometimes. Jesus. This is it, baby.
On September 25th, 1978, a Pacific Southwest Airlines Boeing 727 jet airliner entered San Diego airspace. Like all PSA aircraft, Flight 182 had a whimsical black button nose and smiley face painted underneath the cockpit.
Yo, if this crashes, I am never, ever going on anything with a smiley face. Because the hot air balloon crashed and that had a smiley face, bro. I swear.
So-called grinning birds were synonymous with the company's self-promoting ad campaign about them being the world's friendliest airline. But the airline was often criticized for being too friendly with their super low airfares, their kind of comic banter that the captains would employ through the intercom to passengers, and their female flight attendants who wore miniskirts and were instructed to make nice with the male passengers.
What does that mean? What does that mean? Bro, is this a plane with like hookers? What does make nice mean? Is make nice like talking nice? Make nice like flirting nice? Or make nice like you're lifting up those skirts on their laps kind of nice? You know what I mean? Like Mile High Club not nice? Like, bro, what kind of nice is this?
Because the weather was clear, air traffic control directed Captain McFerrin and First Officer Fox to switch from instrument flight rules to visual flight rules.
Wait, chat, out of curiosity, what was that plane called? What's it called? Is it called the Smiler plane? Out of curiosity, I'm just interested. I'm just curious. Is that Is it still going? Is it still running?
Procedures
PSA?
And to begin their final descent. Visual flight rules refers
Happy
to pilots
something?
using their eyes to guide the plane. It's done when they're flying low, the weather's clear, and they can see the ground. At 8:59 a.m. that morning, as PSA Flight 182 descended down to 4,000 feet, air traffic control advised them of a Cessna, which is a small plane, that was ascending in their direction. Fox responded that they saw the Cessna, and so air traffic control came back and said to maintain visual separation. Maintain visual separation meant that despite ground radar-based controllers who could provide vertical and lateral separation criteria, the burden for maintaining separation fell solely on Captain McFerrin and his crew. In layman's terms, air traffic control was telling them, don't lose sight of the Cessna. Okay. Inside the Cessna was a flight instructor named Martin Casey and his student, who was a United States Marine named David Boswell. As this little plane ascended, air traffic control informed them that PSA 182, who was right in front of them and slightly above them, they were on their descent. However, they had the Cessna in sight. As a result, the men inside of the Cessna did not take it upon themselves to actively begin looking for this jet. They assumed the pilots of PSA 182, who had them in sight, would avoid them. Back in PSA 182, there seemed to be some confusion in the cockpit.
Well, obviously, the ladies are making nice with the pilots, or the passengers are feeling nice. Maybe they're getting a bit distracted, bro. Because we know the staff is, they're making nice with it. You know what I mean? The pilots gotta make nice too.
Two pilots were debating whether the Cessna they were watching fly lower than them, past them on the right, was the same Cessna that air traffic control had told them about. And at some point they agreed, yep, that's got to be the same Cessna. And so they called in to air traffic control that it looks like the Cessna has passed us. They've flown past us on the right. Okay. Immediately after this transmission, the black box recorded the two pilots talking to each other, basically trying to convince the other that yes, that was definitely the right Cessna. But after a couple of minutes of reassuring themselves, one of them says, boy, I hope that was the right Cessna. According to later testimony by the air traffic controller who was in communication with the pilots of PSA 182 as they were on their final descent, he would say when Captain McFerrin came over and said the Cessna has passed him on the right, he believed him and he didn't think to check to make sure it was the right one. But in reality, the Cessna that McFerrin and Fox had seen was the wrong one. The real Cessna they were supposed to maintain visual separation with, the one containing Casey and Boswell, was still ascending in the direct flight path of PSA 182, except now this Cessna is in 182's blind spot below their nose, so they literally can't see each other.
Oh my God.
At 9:01 that morning, air traffic control got an alarm that PSA 182 and this Cessna are about to collide.
Oh my God.
But for some reason, the air traffic controller did not alert both aircraft. Instead, this controller only contacted the Cessna and didn't tell them this was a dire situation. They said, hey, there's traffic in your vicinity, but I'm pretty sure it's just PSA 182 and they already see you, so you're fine. So Casey and Boswell inside of the Cessna just continued to ascend.
Yo, situations like this is you don't just go, it's fine. Situations like this, you double check and triple check. Like if a plane is heading on with a plane, I would like to think you're clarifying they know. Like, oh, hey, just checking in again. You're still like on track to hit each other. Do you see them? Yeah, don't worry. We see them again. You know what I mean? Like,
1 minute later, at 9:02 a.m., PSA 182 flies directly over the Cessna and strikes them with their nose wheel. The Cessna gets hooked by the wheel and flips upside down and gets trapped underneath the right wing of the jet. Seconds later, the Cessna splits in two. The tail section containing David Boswell plummets to the earth like a rag doll. The nose section of the Cessna that contained Martin Casey stayed trapped underneath the right wing for a few seconds before it detonated. Inside of PSA 182, this explosion was deafening, and immediately after it, McFerrin was recorded saying, easy baby, easy baby. Then he asks Fox, what's the damage? And Fox says, it's bad, man, we're hit. Despite trying to keep the plane flying level, it lurched forward into an unrecoverable nosedive, and McFerrin, knowing they were doomed, calmly calls out to air traffic control and says, we're going down. Air traffic responded, okay, we'll have the equipment ready for you. Then the black box recorded the sound of a stall warning inside the cockpit. And as the aircraft streaked at over 300 miles per hour straight towards the ground, McFerrin's last known transmission to air traffic was, this is it, baby. Seconds before impact, McFerrin gave his final command over the intercom, which was brace yourselves. And then right before the black box cut out, someone in the cabin yelled, "I love you, Mom." At 9:03 a.m., PSA 182 slammed nose first into the ground just outside of downtown San Diego in an area called North Park. The resulting explosion of thousands of gallons of jet fuel sent a shockwave that was registered 2 miles away. Almost immediately, fire...
The thing is, chat, that definitely killed people down there as well. Unless, very luckily, no one was in those houses, which I highly doubt.
Fighters were rushing towards the rising mushroom cloud of black, oily smoke, and many of the first responders that arrived at the crash site in those first few hours were deeply disturbed at what they saw. The bodies that had not been destroyed in the explosion had gotten trapped up in the trees. All told, 144 people were killed in this accident. 135 were from PSA 182, 2 were from the Cessna, and 7 were just unlucky people that were standing on the ground in North Park. Following a 1-year investigation into the mid-air collision, it was determined that the flight crew of PSA 182 was found to be primarily responsible because there was that moment that was picked up in the black box where the 2 pilots were unsure if the Cessna that passed them was the right one. But instead...
Yo, bro, I don't care, bro. If my plane, I ever go on a plane or anything that goes in the air that has a smiley face on, I ain't going on it, bro. That's back to back now. The hot air balloon had a smiley face crash. The plane smiley face crash. I ain't going on no smiley face ever.
Instead of calling that into air traffic control and getting confirmation, they blew it off. The morning of the crash, a San Diego photographer was at a press event when he heard the explosion overhead, which was 182 colliding with the Cessna, and he began taking pictures, and he captured these now 2 infamous photos of PSA 182 seconds before they hit the ground.
Jesus, man. Yo, that's horrible.
So that's gonna do it, guys.
Yo, I don't like planes anyway. Now I don't like them even more. Fuck.